Cheers, guys. Epix 911, welcome to the Monday, January 9th, 2017 edition of VR News. Let's jump right into VR, guys. I want to start with Elite Dangerous. I have never been shy about saying it's my favorite virtual reality game, hands down. The reason for me is simple. Cockpit games are the most natural fit, in my humble opinion, for virtual reality because most of the time you're playing your games in the seated position, which is exactly what you're doing in a cockpit game. You're sitting, right? I've even gone to the nerdy lengths, and here's a picture of Velcroing my HOTAS configuration to my desk in the exact same position as the same setup in game. So when I pull back on the flight stick, crush the throttle forward, my in-game avatar in perfect synced unison does exactly the same thing. And man, does that freaking add to the immersion. It's just awesome. So what is so special about Elite right now, and what the hell else does this have to do with VR? Thargoids. Thargoids were the original mysterious big bad enemy in Elite. The first game, it's 2 sequels. Yeah, there were 2 sequels for anyone who didn't know. Amazing scope and scale for their time. Planet landings, the whole 9 yards. The only minor complaints, other than being really slow on some systems, was the fact that the flight model used actual Newtonian physics. So spaceship fighting and travel was like it would really be, and it was kind of boring. Now, you can do that in Elite Dangerous, but you can also use the World War I/World War II traditional dogfight model that most space games have adopted. Yeah, you sacrifice a bit of realism, but you add a lot of fun back. So, Thargoids are back apparently. A couple of commanders have been intercepted by them, but unlike they did in the first 3 games, they don't immediately open fire. This time around, they mysteriously scan the commanders before leaving. Now, are they friend or are they foe? And that's hopefully, and there's lots of speculation in the Elite Dangerous community, we find out over the next few weeks, months, for sure, as the updates continue to add more content to this game. And that's the other thing I love about it, guys. It didn't rake in anywhere near as much as Star Citizen. Ultimately, if Star Citizen lives up to its original scope, or hell, the expanded scope, it will be the better of the 2, probably. I have, very little doubt about that. But Elite Dangerous is also adding content, and they're doing it in a fully playable game from start to finish on much less money, providing, for me anyways, much more fun. So definitely a game that if you like space games, but for some reason, guys, you haven't played Elite Dangerous yet, easily my favorite VR experience, probably one you're going to enjoy as well. All right, Epic Games CEO Tim Sweeney at it again, this time with Glixel.com, who sent an interviewer to interview him for 3 to 4 hours, basically hang with the Timster and ask him questions. Tim Sweeney does not hold back. He's a pretty blunt guy, which I love about his interviews. He's honest, and he basically wears his passion on his sleeve, and that's how open he is, talking about the industry at large, the other players, friend or foe. Doesn't seem to really differentiate too much. He calls it basically as he sees it. Now, this interview had a huge virtual reality focus. It's just a really good read. It's a bit on the long side, but like I said, a really good read. I've included not only the original Glixel link, but about 5 other websites that kind of paraphrased that a little bit, added their own 2 cents. But I think the original, the Glixel.com interview, is hands down the best one. Now, he makes comparisons between what he calls the crappy Palm Pilot 25 years ago and how that's evolved into the smartphone or phablet or tablet that we have today. And it's true. 25 years is a long time, but holy crap, have there been advancements. He sees VR going down the same path, and his vision for even 12 years from now, as he puts it, is likely to be something resembling Oakley sunglasses on our head with better resolution and quality than the best quality massive screens of today, having desktop level of performance in mobile form factor in 12 years. This part I talked about when I last talked about Tim, but just wanted to flesh it out just a tiny bit more. He talked about Elon Musk's Hyperloop and whatever you're feeling on that, whether, you believe, as I do, that it's a lot of bad science. Not that similar concepts couldn't work, but theirs, at least on paper, with knowledge of engineering, doesn't make a lot of sense. But regardless, it's not what we're talking about. We're talking about Hyperloop as a fast travel system. And Tim said virtual reality can make so much of that redundant. And the example that he gives is just awesome. He goes, we will recreate humans. You will have inward-facing cameras capturing your facial motion and outward-facing cameras capturing your body motion. You'll be able to see anyone doing their natural motions wherever they are, do anything but touch them. Other than that, perfect recreations. Unless, of course, you want to do some cosmetics, right? He goes, we're going to have teleportation with this technology. With VR, we don't have to simulate human emotions because we simply map out existing ones in real time, which, yeah, absolutely mind blown. The potential there is huge for, something as simple as talking to a loved one a continent away. The ability to do that and have it be that lifelike would be awesome. Now, he then launches a barrage squarely against Oculus, who is a partner with Epic in a few ventures, but more on that in a sec. So when he talks about Oculus, here's his exact response. Oculus right now, following the iOS model, is what the interviewer asked him, and his response was yes. I think it's the wrong model. When you install the Oculus drivers by default, you can only use the Oculus Store. You have to rummage through the menu and turn that off if you want to run Steam, which everybody does. It's just alienating and sends the wrong message to developers. It's telling devs, you're on notice here. We're going to dominate this thing and your freedom is going to expire at some point. It's a terrible precedent to set. I argued passionately against it. Then he says, but ultimately, the open platforms will win. They're going to have a much better selection of software. HTC Vive, by comparison, is a completely open platform, and other headsets are coming that will be completely open. Also, Vive is outselling Oculus 2-1 worldwide. I think that trend will continue. Now, for me to interject kind of with my own thoughts and commentary on that, yes, he said Oculus is outselling 2-1, but there's no real statistics, official statistics, to back that up. So keep that in mind. He was then asked, and I love this, because the interviewer was not going to let him walk away, after that barrage on Oculus with this nugget. And he asks him, but right now, Epic is making a closed platform game, Robo Recall, for Oculus. To which Sweeney responds, yes, it's funded by Oculus. It was a budget that could never be funded just on the basis of sales. So that enabled us to do some cool things. My view is that the Oculus Store, which is an awesome store, should run on all PC and VR devices. And that's where I got to throw my 2 cents in and say abso-freaking-lutely. Just like SteamVR Beta caters to both, arguably better to Vive because it is native after all, but it caters to Rift. Oculus Store should likewise cater to Vive. I just think that would be the better model. But again, this is all business and there's business reasons for this. That would just be my desire, my ultimate hope. All right, next news story. SteamVR tracking could be 2017's most important VR technology. Now, we have seen some amazing things coming out of CES 2017 with those Vive trackers. The enormous range of uses for them, it's staggering. Now, They asked Anshul Sag, and that's the Upload VR folks, asked Anshul Sag, who's an analyst with more insights and strategy, about that. And his response was lighthouse tracking enables things like the VR or the Vive tracker to just work. Accessory developers don't have to integrate the tech directly into their hardware yet and can allow for a faster time to market until they get lighthouse tracking built in. Having the ability to support tracked items and accessories in game on the Vive will prove to be a major differentiator and advantage for Vive. Are additional headsets going to release that are compatible with SteamVR tracking? If this happens, it will become clearer that Valve is enabling an ecosystem of objects and accessories, all of which can be tracked by the same royalty-free technology. The only real requirement seems to be compatibility with SteamVR. So, absolutely, the potential for those devices that we've touched on, having just that extra viewport for co-op and multiplayer to really kind of add a social quality to what's pretty much an individual experience, right? With that HMD in your head, everybody else is watching it unfold on the TV. You're the one experiencing it. With these trackers, that can change. And of course, multiplayer programming could change that as well. And that'll be coming, I have no doubt, once things stabilize and get more efficient. But things like the new prototype Vive trackers are all going to benefit. And if there's one Vive piece of technology that I'm most excited about in 2017, hands down, these trackers. Link for that below. Like I said, it's an Upload VR article. Next news piece. CyberPowerPC and AMD unveil VR-ready rig that's only $499 US when Rift bundled. Now, we of course had those revised minimum specs for the Rift. So what they're doing in this bundle, CyberPowerPC, is an FX 4350 running at 4.2 gigahertz, the Radeon RX 470, which is the 4 gig minimum card, it kind of slots in there, RAM 8 gigs, hard drive 1 terabyte. Personally, I would have gone with SSD. Optical drive, not sure why that's in there. I would have not bothered. Keyboard and mouse included, yes. USB connectivity, 3 USB 3s and 7 2s. Good, very good. If you don't buy the Rift, you basically have to pay $150 more. That PC alone costs $649. So the whole bundle price with the Rift and everything saves you about $149 because the bundle price as a whole is $1,099.98 when you factor in everything that's included. But just the PC component, if you had to buy it not in a bundle, would be $649. In that entire bundle, $499. So very, very good deal. Next news story, HTC and Intel partnering on new WiGig wireless VR solution. And if it seems like I'm harping a lot on HTC being the more open, look, these are news stories. I'm not coming up with this stuff. I'm reporting it. But at the same time, if I am going to be honest and throw my opinion out there, I do tend to agree. I would prefer openness versus closed systems. That's me. That's kind of my desire. And I love my Rift. I love Oculus. That would just be a quibble for me. That's a tough one because I wish it was more open. Now, HTC, on the other hand, all kinds of partnerships. And this one, just another example. So between them and Intel, there's those two technologies. So TPcast uses one of them, and TPcast is using wireless HD, whereas Intel primarily WiGig. Their partnership with Intel is about research and developing those. So very cool just to see them involved in all these varied initiatives. Next news story, a company called Amberella showed off 3 new chips at CES last week. This was something I didn't cover When I saw it today, looked into it a little bit more, they've got several chips. We won't go into crazy detail. I'll have the link on it, but they've got the A9AQ, basically camera system on chip. Think of it that way. That's what this is. And where they see potential is embedding these for 360-degree cameras to be able to facilitate the requirements of those cameras, the 4K, at some future point, 8K. That's what these chips are being designed with that in mind. Their other one is an 8K Ultra HD chip for VR. Drone cameras is another area these things are being used. 8K Ultra HD at 30 frames per second and 4K Ultra HD at 120 frames per second. So just the stuff that's going on with drones. I mean, if you look at some of that footage, 20 years ago, not even an inkling. I mean, we had stealth drones, military, but in terms of private consumers, having pretty much a stable, non-jittery image from anywhere from a few feet off the ground to hundreds of meters into the air is awesome. Next news story, Fortune.com. Interview with the IMAX CEO on VR and his plan for the VR arcades. This is a really good article, guys. It throws a lot of insight, and I said when there's more to report on this, I would talk about it, and that's exactly what this is. We've talked about those centers. The last we talked about the centers at IMAX, I announced the delay that would see a delay into early 2017. After reading this interview with Richard Gelfond, who again is the CEO of IMAX, it makes a lot more sense why they delayed and why they waited. So some of the questions Fortune asked him, and I'll just kind of paraphrase this a little bit. Why are you building the VR centers? And he said, because of IMAX's brand, we felt we were in a very good position to be a first mover in the VR entertainment space. And I love this next part. Many people have described VR to us, and then they'd say stuff like, we're the IMAX of VR, meaning they're providers of a high-end VR immersive experience. And we said, gee, why couldn't IMAX be the IMAX of VR rather than someone else being the IMAX of VR? That's how the process got started. Then he was asked about the challenges of debuting these hubs, and he said a lot of it had to do with constantly changing technology, which is currently the best headset, questions like that. Then do you see VR becoming a theater-going experience or something for the home? And he says, I think they can both exist side by side. There's a blockbuster movie, you're probably going to want to see it in IMAX, then you'll see it in your home. If it's not really a blockbuster movie, the type that you would have in the past waited maybe for a rental for, that's something you're probably going to enjoy at home. So I like how he's differentiated that. Because one of the things that drives me nuts is the blackouts that some sports franchises do. For example, we have a football club here for the Canadian Football League, the BC Lions. And the knee-jerk reaction always is whenever attendance is down that, oh, it's because we don't have a blackout. People are watching the games on TV at home in high def. I buy that argument to a point, but it's also about having an exciting product on the field. It's about having reasonable ticket prices, concessions. There's a lot that factors in. Your scheduled times. If you have a game at 3 p.m. or 4 p.m. on a weekday, who's showing up to that when a lot of people are working? So, agreed there as well. And he said, look, the last question, would it be something like the VR experience that accompanied the new Ghostbusters movie when asked about how he sees the integration with VR movies playing out? And he said his response to that was yes, partially, but probably even more involved, the VR side by side with the actual movie. So very good interview, and just basically boils down to timing for them as a company. And with him having said that, for me, all the pieces fall into play. Can't wait to check it out. Like I mentioned before, I'm literally a couple of clicks away from a massive Cineplex Odeon, the one that looks like a UFO crash landed. Can't wait. Really want to try that out. All right, guys, that's it for news tonight. Cheers as always, and definitely Catch you guys on the VR flip side.